Going to cover borderline personality disorder. Slide shows the common mental disorders we see, or at least I see in my practice. Right from the top, you have organic mental disorder, you have psychotic disorder, bipolar, depressive disorder, anxiety disorder, and their subtypes. Obsessive compulsive disorders, stress-related disorders, eating disorders, addictive disorders, and personality disorder, number 10. And you notice I put personality difficulties or personality traits. It doesn't have to be a disorder. Some of us can have personality traits, okay? And I will elaborate later. Okay, sometimes we are not sure whether it's a personality disorder or a mood disorder or even part of growing up. This lady was admitted to Maui for a period of 20 over days because she couldn't take her O-level exam. She had to take her O-level exam in the hospital. She cut herself. You can see the cuts on the left elbow here. And she just couldn't regulate her mood. And she was impulsive. She had difficulty concentrating when at home. But in the hospital, she did manage to concentrate and did manage to prepare for her examination. In the end, she did her O-level and did very well, but unfortunately, she cannot regulate her mood. Here is a good example: intelligent but cannot regulate mood. EQ not very high, but IQ extremely high. And this is something that I will dwell on it later. The difference between having intellect but poor in emotional regulation. Constantly ask ourselves as doctors, is this a mood disorder? Is there a personality disorder, or is it just part of growing up? Many doctors are reluctant, or many psychiatrists are reluctant to diagnose personality disorder, especially before the age of 18, because we think it's part of growing up. But recent research shows that personality disorders can manifest itself as early as teenage years. And many of them eventually go on to develop PD, personality disorder. I will start with this very famous actress, Sammy Chain. She developed depression for 3 years, but I always suspected that she could have an underlying personality issue. Why do I say it? Because she talked about being angry easily and being selfish, very self-centered, I, me, and myself. And obviously, also with the wrong values. She talked about being perfectionistic. She talked about being famous, being wealthy, and being good-looking appearance, putting a lot of focus on appearance, but no emphasis on her well-being. You know, she say it's okay to faint. She used to take 2 apples in 7 days, 2 apples in 7 days. And it's okay as long as I'm very pretty, I'm beautiful. It doesn't matter whether I faint or not. So obviously all the wrong values. Let's hear a little video clip here.
我不懂停下来，也追求完美当中，也让我常常听不到自己心灵上面的需要，我心底里面的需要。
可是大家都会觉得你很棒，掌声这么多，你怎么会觉得有伤害呢？
因为我不懂得真正去听从我真正内心需要的是什么。
What she's trying to say is, I may be an actress, I may be a singer, but I don't listen to my inner calling. Basically, for those of you who don't understand Mandarin, what she's saying is that I put a lot of emphasis on success. I put a lot of emphasis on being famous, but I overlook my inner growth, my inner development, my spiritual inner self-development.
以为成就，我以为金钱，我以为漂漂亮亮就是一切就足够了。我拥有这些，这个就等同真修完了。我没想到，在追求这个知识的过程当中，让我自己一些感觉受伤了。比如说，我根本不理我自己身体，我减肥7天吃2个苹果
，7天只吃2个苹果，
对，完全不理身体。
7 days, 2 apples. I don't care about my body. I only care about looking beautiful. And
我昏倒没关系，最重要漂亮，最重要瘦。那昏倒没关系，我就把一些很错误的价值观一直堆放在自己的身上面，直到有一天我自己的心那么小，怎么承担那么重的压力呢？一下子也爆出来了。
Okay, basically, all the wrong values. She was depressed for 3 years, did not see a psychiatrist, and 3 things helped her. She started to draw. When you draw, you're in touch with your unconscious. And she started to write a book. At the end of the 3 years, she published a book. So again, when you write, you are in touch with your unconscious. So it's a 3 years of healing process for her. And I suspected there's an underlying personality problem on top of the depression, but there was no way I could prove until 2018 when she came to Singapore. She was interviewed by the Straits Times, and this is what she said. I was very insecure. I was chasing after fame and success. And now I'm more mature and I found religion. And that's the third factor that helped her grow. Drawing, writing a book, and religion. Religion has changed my values and I'm completely relaxed. So if you think carefully, a lot of emphasis on success and fame, no emphasis on internal growth. The 3 years of depression made her wake up. In a way, it was a wake-up call. And let's hear a little video clip on what she's doing now.
Hi, Asia One. I'm Sammy Chain. I'm so honored to be here to promote our new movie.
那我当初重新出发，就是我觉得我不能够再沉沦下去，不能够在这个 depression 的 mode 里面，然后我就确定要掏出来再开一个演唱会。当我跌到一个谷底，或者已经好像已经半死的状态，我又重新爬起来，然后又看到不一样的那个风光。我好喜欢不停去用不同的角度去看自己，然后也不 set 任何的 boundaries 给我自己。我觉得任何年龄都可以有这个力量，可以发现一个不一样的自己的。
This is important. Not only she discovered a new side to herself, a new aspect. She said, no more boundary. And then she's saying that it doesn't matter your age. We all can change. We can all change for the better, provided we have the insight. Provided we remove our blind spots, provided we are motivated to change. So regardless of any age, we are all capable of change, especially improving for the better. There's this idea, and it is a myth, that once you have a certain personality, it's very hard to change. But research lately say personality is not permanent. You can change.
觉得特别的自然，因为那个也是我的一个部分，不管他是美、丑、肥、瘦，都是我整个人的一个部分。
I will hold another concert in July 2019. I've got 4 new movies will be shown very soon.
Right. So from this little case study, if you like, case study of Sammy Chain, you can see that it's not just depression. There is an underlying personality issue. And she took 3 years to recover. And she's so much better now. So as doctors, when you come across a patient who is depressed, ask yourself, are there underlying personality issues? Not even personality disorder. And how can I, as a doctor, help this patient besides the depression or anxiety? What about the underlying personality problem? Everyone has a story, right? We have traits and tendencies, and there is a pattern to our behavior. As a doctor, we look for the pattern, especially as a psychiatrist. When a patient comes to see us, we look for the pattern of behavior. And then we all have moral, ethical, and religious beliefs. And with these 3 points, we either adapt or we maladapt. And when you maladapt, you develop what we call a personality disorders. And you can be mild, moderate, or severe in your adaptation, mild adaptation. And everybody has a story. So when you close your eyes, ask yourself, what are my traits and tendencies? What is the pattern of my behavior? And what kind of beliefs I hold? I always tell my patient, beliefs shape behavior. Who we are largely depend on our beliefs, our pattern, our traits and tendency. Yeah? Okay. Now, I want to say a bit about Prince Harry before I move on to borderline personality disorder and the role our past affect us, the role of trauma in our life. You see, Prince Harry was 12 years old when his mother passed away. And there were two things he couldn't understand. Number one, why did the paparazzi, when they were at the tunnel, why they didn't send my mother to hospital? Why were they selfishly and busily taking photographs? And the second thing that he couldn't understand was, why were people crying when it's not their mother? It's my mother. Why were people crying over the death of my mother? So he couldn't understand. For many years, he did not actually process all these unresolved issues in his life. So from the age of 28 to 32, he's 34 now, his life was very chaotic. So this is how the past affect our present. He saw GPs, he saw counselors, he even went for EMDR, eye movement reprocessing and desensitization. This is to link up with his past, reprocess his past, and in order to move on in his life. I would like also to talk about Lady Gaga. She cut herself. She could not regulate her mood. She acted impulsively at times. She would bang her head against the wall. And again, she started to realize that she actually did not process her past trauma very well. And she developed fibromyalgia. The whole body was in pain for at least 5 years. And she was admitted to hospital. They sent a psychiatrist to see her, and she was very annoyed. She said, why you send a psychiatrist to see me? I'm not psychiatrically ill. But eventually, she came to terms with her problem, and she actually went for psychiatric help. And let's hear what she's got to say.
Well, you know, at first, when I was younger, I went through a lot of struggles in high school. I was really bullied. I didn't feel good about myself. I felt so secluded and isolated. But what's interesting about it is that I have found through neuropsych research and my relationship with my doctors that fibromyalgia can be treated through mental health therapy. And mental health is a medical condition. It should be treated as a medical condition. It should not be ignored. And
So twice you've said you have mental health issues.
Yes.
What does that mean for you? Because
So I was raped repeatedly when I was 19 years old. And I also developed PTSD. And
as a result of the rape?
As a result of being raped. And also not processing that trauma. I did not have anyone help me.
She's now a champion for mental health. Why did Will Smith slap Chris Rock? As a psychiatrist, I was curious. I wanted to know what happened and why did he act so impulsively. I just finished reading his autobiography. This book was written in November. He was brought up by a very strict father. His father was described by him in 3 words: discipline, discipline, discipline. And the father actually ran the household, like running a military unit. The father was from the military. And then The father was a perfectionist. Everything must be perfect. In fact, the father told him 99 is the same as 0. I repeat, 99 is the same as 0. In other words, even if you have 99, to the father is equal to 0. When he was 11 years old, he witnessed his father slapping his mother. And because the father was drunk, and the father slapped his mother. The younger sister and younger brother could tell the father off. Unfortunately, he couldn't. And he saw himself as a coward. He said, why am I so cowardly? Why I didn't stand up for my mother? And that colored his life. That influenced his personality a lot. Then when he wrote this book, he then discovered that why he didn't do it, because there was a part in him who admired his father. He felt that he is very much like his father, because the father, on the one hand, is an alcoholic with a glass of beer. On the other hand, is very creative, talented, with a mic in his phone, in his hand, can sing, can dance, can crack jokes. So he saw a lot of him being influenced by his father. So he felt he shouldn't tell his father off because he's conflicted, unlike his two younger siblings. And it was this conflict within him that actually shaped a lot of his personality. And so when Chris Rock cracked a joke about his wife, he looked at his wife. The wife was very, very unhappy. And then he decided, I cannot be a coward anymore. So he stood forward, walked forward and slapped Chris Rock. Sometimes our behavior seemingly inexplicable, but if you look at the person's growing up years, look at the person's life, it does make a lot of sense when you then link the past to the present. Our memory store is the hippocampus. Within the memory store, we keep our memories, both positive and negative. And the memory store is within the limbic system, okay? So the past will affect our present, that's for sure. So if you don't process the past, it will continue to haunt us. In borderline personality disorder, much of the etiology lies in the traumatic past, and we'll come to that later, okay? Now, this is the DSM-4, not DSM-5. DSM-5 is the latest. DSM-5 no longer use the 5 axis. In DSM-4, which stands for Diagnostic Statistical Manual, 4th edition, we use the 5 axis. Personality disorders is in 2nd axis. Axis 1 is psychiatric disorder. Then you have medical problem, you have stressors, and then you have coping skills, okay? And as a doctor, when you see a patient, always be mindful of axis 2, any personality problem. I did this for general practitioners, and let's take a look at this video clip.
As a general practitioner, it is important to know the personality of your patient well. As a general practitioner, it is important to know the personality of your patient well, because the patient feels comforted that you are interested in them, not just their illness, their hobbies, how they cope when they are under stress, what things are stressing them. So I encourage general practitioners to think of the 5 axes. Axis 1 is there a psychological disorder? Am I able to help the patient, or do I need to refer the patient to a psychiatrist? Second is personality. What is the underlying personality of this patient in terms of traits, tendency, in terms of pattern? Is there a pattern, especially if it's a maladaptive pattern? And if it's maladaptive, we can then go on to diagnose personality disorder. The 10 typical personality disorders is clustered into 3 clusters. The first cluster would be the odd one. You have schizoid personality disorder, you have schizotypal personality disorder, paranoid personality disorder. The second cluster is the anxious cluster. You have histrionic personality disorder, antisocial personality disorder, narcissistic personality disorder, and borderline personality disorder. Then the last cluster is the avoidant cluster, and that group will include avoidant behavior, obsessive compulsive personality disorder, and dependent personality disorder. Axis 3 is regarding medical problem. For example, if you have a thyroid problem, it can affect your psychological state. We need to know any medical issues affecting the patient. Axis 4 is stressors in the person's life. This is again allowing the general practitioner to find out what is stressing the patient. And for my practice, usually financial problem, friendship problem, interpersonal relationship problem, including boyfriend-girlfriend problems. And then you have family-related problems. Axis 5 is how do they normally cope. Therefore, as a general practitioner, it is always good to find out from your patient. It's a very simple question you ask. If you feel you're under stress, what do you normally do? Then you have healthy coping mechanism and unhealthy coping mechanism. Healthy ones will be going for a swim, jogging, going to the gym, yoga. The unhealthy one will be smoking, drinking, gambling. So it really allows you to understand your patient better using the 5 axes. Then knowing the personality is important because personality and psychiatric disorders are on 2 separate axes. All of us have a personality. So a person can have a personality problem, at the same time be depressed or anxious. Not so long ago, there was a Korean singer, Kim Jong-hun. He was 27. In his suicide note to his friend, he said the doctor was focusing on his personality, blaming his unhappiness on his personality, when in fact he was clinically depressed. And that's the danger, overemphasizing that personality without treating the depression. For every patient, remember to size up the personality. And from there, if there is depression, if there's anxiety, you can tackle both. Not just the personality, but the anxiety and the depression and any other psychiatric disorders.
Yeah, this is what I show in the video. He went to see a doctor. The doctor put a lot of emphasis on his personality and blame it on his personality, actually ignoring his depression. And in the end, he took his own life, which is so sad.